Shabbat Shalom. Here we are again. 6 months ago, we gathered in this room, 1 week after the tragedy known now simply as Pittsburgh. We were sad, scared, angry, and frankly, surprised. But here we are again, 1 week after Poway and 6 months after Pittsburgh. We are again sad, for sure. Angry. Boy, do I feel angry. But are we shocked? Are we surprised? I feel none of that this time around. It was only a matter of time, we said, following Pittsburgh, until another tragedy would occur. It was only a matter of time. Here we are 1 week after Poway, and I'm beginning to try to formulate a response. Not just to this loss, but to the growing threat of anti-Semitism and the compounding plague of gun violence, which has affected us and other faith communities as well. To move forward, we must look to the past. During the waves of anti-Semitism in Europe of the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, our people responded in one of three ways. In Western Europe, where the ghetto walls fell at the beginning of modernity, our people sought to flee the plague of anti-Semitism by assimilating, by leaving Judaism altogether. In Eastern Europe, still oppressed, many Jews responded with what we now call Hasidism, a Judaism by which individuals in the community turn radically inward to focus on joy and spirituality and to wall off the outside world. Yet the Holocaust showed us quite clearly that neither assimilation nor isolation are successful approaches to battling anti-Semitism. Still, other Jews had an even more radical response to anti-Semitism. They turned toward Zion, seeking to establish a modern state of Israel. Both secular and religious Zionism were responses to anti-Semitism. And this week, we will celebrate on Yom Ha'atzmaut the success of their efforts and of ours. Liot am Chovshi b'Artzenu, to be a free people in our land, the land of Zion and Jerusalem. So far, thank God, one of the most successful responses to anti-Semitism has been the establishment of a Jewish nation state with a Jewish army willing to defend Jewish sovereignty, Jewish land, and most importantly, Jewish people. Here in America, there was a different response to the anti-Semitism unique to our national milieu. The approach of the American Jewish communities in the 19th and 20th centuries to combat the broad array of anti-Semitism and anti-Semites here, including such figures as Henry Ford and Father Coughlin in our own backyard, was to engage in what I call the 4 B's: belonging, battling, building, and believing. We belonged to a synagogue family where we found friendship and community. We battled against anti-Semitism through the courts, through legislation, and by standing with other minority groups who suffered discrimination. Some of us even remember as children battling anti-Semites with our fists. Belonging, battling, and building. We built unbelievable synagogue and JCC structures to announce to the world the success of the Jews in America. Some say that in building such large institutions, we Jews had quite the edifice complex. We also built families. We married young, and we had 3, 4, or 5 children. Belonging, battling, building, and believing. We believed in God. We believed in America, and especially its government. And we believed this was a different land, a different place, and a different time, where Jews and Judaism could thrive here in the diaspora. In the 19th and 20th centuries, Jews truly belonged, battled, built, and believed. But because of our successes here in America and the subsequent decline in anti-Semitism, we became complacent in our Judaism and in our commitment to Jews. We stopped belonging to synagogues. We raised fewer children, and we left our families to move to new cities for better jobs. We stopped believing in God. We stopped believing that governmental leaders could make a difference. and we stop believing in Israel and Hatikva, Israel's hope to be a democratic Jewish state in the land promised by God to our ancestors and to us. We also stopped battling. Well, I should clarify. We blessedly kept battling against discrimination and for the protection of the rights of other minority groups. But we stopped battling for Jews, and we certainly stopped battling for Judaism. So here we are today, smaller in number, lacking in faith, and suffering anti-Semitism once again. An anti-Semitism intensified by the ease with which one might obtain a rapid-fire weapon. What now do we do? First, it is a mitzvah, a commandment for Jews to protect themselves, and necessary steps must be put into place. I'm grateful to the Zedek Security Committee and to our synagogue officers for their leadership. And I'm grateful to the membership of Zedek for recognizing that increased security means increased costs that we have to absorb. In protecting ourselves, though, we must caution against vigilantism and responding to violence with violence. The idealization of the wild, wild west with a gun for every person will only increase our exposure to danger. It will not prevent it. Second, in order to combat anti-Semitism, we must remember that assimilation and isolation do not work. Pretending that we are not Jewish by ceasing our involvement with Jewish communal life and by stopping our religious practice because of fear or apathy is exactly what the anti-Semites want. Assimilation allows the anti-Semites to win. Isolation, too, does not work. The United States nearly annihilated anti-Semitism, not by Jews separating themselves from the outside world, but because, through education and communication, good people of all faiths saw the evil of discrimination against Jews. The Jewish community is stronger as a result of our interfaith partnerships, and we're grateful to our non-Jewish brothers and sisters who stand up for us and who speak out against anti-Semitism in particular, against discrimination in general, and against violence of all kinds. Third, unlike assimilation and isolationism, Zionism is working, and we must do everything we can to support Israel as a democratic Jewish state in the land of Israel, while recognizing it is not yet the Messianic ideal and seeking to fix its imperfections. Fourth, we must recommit ourselves to the 4 B's that led to a strong Judaism in the America of the 19th and 20th centuries: belonging, battling, building, and believing. We must encourage belonging to a synagogue family like Congregation Shaarey, where we can find friendship and community. We must build Jewish families, when possible, by having 3 or more children, while still recognizing with love and understanding that infertility is a real issue for which no one should be made to feel guilty or stigmatized. And we must, again, believe in God, in the American dream, and in the hope that is the state of Israel. Belonging, building, believing, and battling. We must battle against anti-Semitism through the courts, through legislation, and by standing with other minority groups who suffer discrimination. We must battle this 21st century anti-Semitism by beginning in our own homes to practice civility, respect, and tolerance. Please, no more name-calling, patronizing, or hurling of insults at those with whom we disagree, neither in person nor on Facebook. The children are listening. They're paying attention. Looking toward Washington, D.C. and from coast to coast, we must battle anti-Semitism by calling out the insulting rhetorical tropes of both the political left and the right, as well as those in our government who might not be anti-Semites themselves, but enable a culture of anti-Semitism. Those of us who point the finger in only one direction, by the way, to the left or to the right, are simply not paying attention to what is going on. Or even worse, are placing political allegiances ahead of loyalty to the Jewish people. There are anti-Semites and enablers of anti-Semitism on both sides of the political aisle. We must call upon local, state, and national leaders to speak up for civility, for respect, and for tolerance, and we must elect only moral leaders who pursue those values. We battle anti-Semitism by calling out those in the media, including mainstream news sources, who inflame tensions or worse, promote anti-Semitism. As is often said, the Holocaust did not begin with gas chambers, but with words, stereotypes, and prejudices, sometimes presented as cartoons and caricatures. We must also lobby for greater access to mental health care and destigmatize that care. And we must also seek from our elected leadership a rational, reasonable response to the gun violence plaguing our society and our homes. Transforming our society's infatuation with weapons will take lifetimes to achieve, but we must start today. And it's not only words and legislation that matter. We Jews must protect ourselves physically. We must combat assimilation and isolation. We must support Israel. We must engage the 4 B's of belonging, battling, building, and believing. Finally, we must deepen our resolve to offer a Judaism that is joyful, not a dumbed-down version that is light and silly, but deep, profound, and joyful. If we want our young people to belong, to build, to believe, we must not perpetuate the 20th century Judaism of formality and of guilt. Nor can Judaism be only about battling anti-Semitism. Rather, we must provide a Judaism that offers a sense of meaning and purpose, of gratitude and true joy. Prayer experiences ought to uplift and inspire, and we, not just clergy, but parents and grandparents, we must teach our children and our grandchildren how to celebrate Judaism in the home with bright candles, good wine, delicious food, traditional Jewish rituals, and family celebrations. We must turn off the cell phones and tune in to each other. Grandparents must model and encourage their children and grandchildren to do Jewish and to go to shul, and they must facilitate that in ways large and small. Our Judaism must become a religion of get-tos rather than just have-tos. 2 months ago, my oldest son and I were headed downtown for a show. "Don't forget to put on your kippah," I reminded him. A couple minutes go by, and we're just about out the door, and noting to myself that my son is indeed an early adolescent. I have to say to him again, "Please put on your kippah." Then we're getting into the car, and I see that he still doesn't have on his kippah. "Where is your yarmulke?" I ask him, with some frustration. "Abba," he says, "it's dangerous for Jews out there. I'm afraid to wear it." Our children are afraid. Honestly, I'm afraid too. And in fact, most of us, I think, are on some level afraid. And that's exactly what the anti-Semites are trying to accomplish: fear. And through fear, destruction. For hundreds of generations, anti-Semites have sought to break our bodies in an effort to destroy our souls. They fear our belief in God and how our holiness and righteousness translate into morality, justice, peace, and joy. So they seek to extinguish the flame and to diminish the light. But we must not give in to the fear, and we must harness our anger. We will not let the light go out, and our souls will continue to burn with a love for God and a commitment to morality and justice. We must stand as well with other individuals and faith communities who seek to bring kindness, justice, and peace into the world. An attack on one house of worship is an attack on all houses of worship. We cannot give in, and yes, we must protect ourselves without becoming obsessed by it. We must stand up for Israel. I ask you as well, I beg you, do not turn to assimilation or isolation. Join with your Shaarey Zedek family to achieve the 4 B's: belonging, battling, building, and believing. Not just because of anti-Semitism, but because this is the way we should live. emboldened, and undeterred. In so doing, let us not bequeath to our children, grandchildren, and future generations a Judaism of fear, but rather one of depth, of joy, of gratitude, and of blessing. The world needs the Jews, and though we sometimes fight it, we Jews need Judaism. 6 months ago was Pittsburgh. 1 week ago was Poway. I worry that it is only a matter of time until another tragedy will occur. But let us not become numb to the violence, nor let us learn to accept it. Instead, let us fight by using facts, faith, and fervor against the fear. Let us in this coming week celebrate with pride and joy that a democratic Jewish state exists once again in the Promised Land. Let us belong. Let us battle. Let us build, and let us believe in ourselves, in Israel, in America, and most importantly, in the good Lord above. Adonai Oze Amo Yitain, Adonai Yivarech et Amo Vashalom. May God bless the Jewish people with courage, wisdom, and strength. And may God bless us all with freedom, safety, joy, and peace. And let us say together, Amen.